Well, welcome everyone to Omaha, Carlentini, and beyond, Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. Why don't we just start off with introductions around the room and see if we've got any new people on with us. Looks like it's all familiar faces. So anybody want to say anything in the way of an introductory thing? I will just summarize what Tammy was just talking about before we started recording. We of course have sort of this sister city relationship, Omaha, Carlentini. Of course, Lentini is part of that as well. But there's so many other towns that Omaha is connected to. But we're interested in Sicily and Italy and beyond. So Tammy was telling us about how she has sort of followed our model and started a group for Cinisi, which is in the Palermo province. So Tammy, can you just tell us briefly what's going on there with that? When do you meet and how many people and whatever?
Well, we don't have a group as vast as this, but we're slowly but surely trying to, as I find DNA matches and people who have connections to my tree, I'll invite them along. We normally have about 6 or 7 of us, that all meet together. And we do like the first Monday night and the third Saturday. But this month, of course, is going to be different because we have the Galveston or the Dickinson Little Italy Festival that weekend. So I have to change that up. But that's when we meet. We meet on Saturday morning, the third Saturday morning, and then Monday, the first Monday night. And did you want me to tell about Maria?
Yes, tell about Maria Pizzo.
So I do have a DNA match. Her name is Maria Pizzo, and she lives in New York. And she came in 1961 to the United States. She said after badgering her parents, just arguing with them, she said that there's got to be something better out there, something bigger. And but she is an absolute wealth of information. She has so much history. She has so much knowledge of the country, of the culture, of just everything. I mean, because she's a native. I mean, this is where she was born. So anyway, she's very interesting to talk to. And so anyway, so she was sharing with us last night about the Easter traditions and things. And she started off with like Mardi Gras, and she was talking about how or Carnivale, I should say. And she said that like when she was little, her parents had dressed her and her brother up. She said because everybody does opposite, and she said they dressed him up as a bride and groom, and she went as the groom, and he was the bride. Anyway, she was just talking about some different things, and she was talking about St. Joseph's Table. She was talking and how all that all fits in, and all of the different aspects of this Lent and Carnival and Easter, holiday season. Anyway, it was just very fascinating. And so I had mentioned to Nick, if she would, I don't know that she would, but I can have her, if y'all are interested, she could share that with you.
Well, I'd be happy to send her a registration link if she wants to come and join us sometime. So we would look forward to that. So thank you, Tammy, for that. So, okay, I want to give a shout out to Bob Hughes for sending me information about the Omaha obituaries. I haven't really been sharing that, but I've been adding the information to the tree, the Italians of Omaha. So if you don't have an invitation to the tree yet, well, if you do, you can set it so you get notifications of activity, and you'll see some of the stuff that I've done recently. But yeah, we had a Sortino that passed away. She was actually married to a Sortino, and their Carlentini family. And we also had a Marchese, which I think is part of Fritz's group. There's Mark Marchese and others that are involved with that. So thank you, Bob, for sending me those. And let's see, Jim Jim and I have been corresponding.
Ciao a tutti ragazzi, ciao.
Ciao Silvana. Ciao Juicy.
Hi everyone, ciao.
Ciao. Ciao Dean, come stai? How are you, Dean?
Yeah, Dean wanted to make a little announcement. So Dean, do you want to go ahead?
Okay, hi everyone. Most of you probably know, for those who don't, 2 weeks ago, during a Zoom call nonetheless, I was attacked in my apartment right here by some crazy woman who doesn't even live here, but she was visiting my neighbor. She bit me on the head and on the ear. And I was in the ER for 3 hours. I'm better now, at least physically. I got a lot of processing to go through, but I just want to thank Jim and Nick for their assistance, because it took me at least 6 attempts to get off the floor onto be able to get to my couch, to get to my phone, and be able to lock my door again, because while I was waiting for the ambulance to come, and I don't know how long that took, but while I was waiting, she tried to come back to my apartment, and luckily I was able to get up and lock the door. So that didn't happen. So there are a lot of things that could happen that could have been a game changer, but I guess it just means that I've got more work to do here. So I guess I better do it.
Oh God. Was she, I mean, you had never met this woman?
No. She had met my neighbor online about a year ago. He said they only met a few times, nothing serious. She said she called him Monday afternoon to come over. He said yes. And she not only attacked me, she attacked him and her daughter. But he said his first line of action was to make her kids safe and secure. So she, in my apartment, the elevator comes off into this area, and there's 2 doors that can separate the area in front of the elevator to the hallway, and that's what he did. And he said by the time he was able to, he had no way of assisting me, he said, because he had to keep the kids separate from the mother. And
Was
then-
she
You're
charged?
doing better,
Was
Dean.
she charged, Nick, or Dean, was she charged with anything?
3 felony counts.
Hmm.
She's in the Douglas County Jail. She has a preliminary hearing on the 27th of March, and all that is to
Was she
make
having-
way for a court hearing later on.
Was she having a mental health crisis?
Yeah, she was definitely on some kind of drug. I had spoke with the one of the police that came Friday night, and they said they gave her some kind of drug called Comadine. I don't know what that is, but it's a sedate. They said even after they sedated her, it took her 4 hours to come down to where she was not a danger to herself or someone else.
Wow, amazing.
But she had
Lucy,
unbelievable
Do you
strength.
mind translating for Silvana,
Yeah.
please?
Exactly, that was what I was about to say. Silvana, tu comunque hai bisogno, vero, della... Sei muta.
Dico, la storia di Dean l'ho vista su Facebook perché lui l'ha raccontata, quindi bene o male so.
Sì, di
Questa
questa
signora
aggressione.
è entrata in casa, infatti gli ho chiesto come stai per questo motivo.
Sì, di
Per
questa
sapere-
aggressione violenta, incredibile.
Assurdo veramente quello che gli è successo.
Okay, she was able to follow because she knew already the story.
Mhm.
Sì, sì, ok.
Good.
Sto vedendo che c'è invece Larry Cimino, che è il cugino di Nick. Nick,
The other
That is your
Cimino
cousin?
is your cousin. Nick?
Sorry.
Perché mi pare che
The other,
Larry dovrebbe-
there's another Cimino. Is he your cousin? That's what she's asking.
Yeah, he is my first cousin.
quello che deve
His
venire a
father and my
Carlentini.
father were brothers.
I think she's speaking about me. We are not, first cousins.
No, we are
Larry,
not.
I did not think
We
so.
probably are related somewhere back because both of our grandparents came here from Carlentini. But we're not directly related.
Related. I see.
I have his
Dean-
family tree, which I can show you. So Dean, how is everything going with your cancer treatment?
That's a cakewalk compared to what this other stuff is. But yeah, it's coming pretty good. I've got about 2 more weeks left. And then they're just gonna monitor it after that. The prognosis is looking good according to the doctor.
Good.
Good.
Silvana, hanno chiesto del discorso della malattia,
Sì, lui ha avuto anche problemi di salute, sì. Sta
sì,
bene
perché lui ed è sotto trattamento, insomma, sta proseguendo con le cure.
la chemio. Ma mischino proprio, non solo la chemio, in più
Matturiato
magari.
proprio.
Veramente.
No,
incredibile.
bad luck with this accident, Dean. I'm very sorry. I probably overlooked that on Facebook. I'm sorry. I didn't know anything about it. I'm shocked.
So this is Larry's family tree. And so actually he's more closely related to Susan Finley because he
Right.
shares
I see.
Franco
Right.
ancestry.
He's my
And,
fourth cousin.
Who's speaking?
He's cousins with you as well, huh, Gary?
Yep,
Oh, is that
So-
Jabalisco?
yep, he's
Yeah,
on my
Gary
DNA
Jabalisco.
list.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw
So-
Jabalisco in at the I think by Bisononu level.
So I traced Larry's tree out to Giuseppe, born in 1820 or 1810 rather. But he's Lentini as opposed to Carlentini.
Hmm.
So at some point they went to Carlentini, I guess after or before the birth of this person here, which would be, okay, father, grandfather, great grandfather. So when the great grandfather was born, Giuseppe and Rosaria Battaglia were in Carlentini. I
Mhm.
believe she is from Carlentini. So that's after they were married, they settled in Carlentini. But mine are Carlentini all the way back,
Yeah.
so I haven't found a connection between the Lentini and the Carlentini Ciminos as of yet.
I took a screenshot of that, Nick. Thank you. I don't think that I had copied it before. I have most of that information, I think. But you have it more complete. And then on my mother's side, as I said last week, my grandfather, Cardella, was from the province of Palermo in Corleone. So it was interesting that that on the call earlier, you had the woman whose connections are to Palermo, where I'll be in a couple of months. I'm going to be there in end of April and early May. So
And my connections are also to Palermo, and I'm going to be there in April and May, but I'm in Polizzi and Santa Ninfa. Oh, Santa Ninfa is Trapani, but Polizzi Generosa is where I'm going to be.
good.
And
Yeah.
what is the other one?
Biagio.
Polizzi and
Polizzi Generosa.
sì, Polizzi Generosa and what is the other?
The other one is Santa Ninfa and Trapani.
Santa
Cross.
Ninfa.
Trapani?
Questo del terremoto.
Yeah.
So according to this registration card, Larry,
Mhm.
Biagio Cardella was born in Corleone.
Mhm. Yeah.
so I need to update that on my tree.
Yeah, what did you have on your?
I just had Italy.
Okay, yeah, no, he was from Corleone, and then he came with his family, and this was Biagio was my great grandfather, Bisnonu. He
Did
came
they
with
come
his,
to New Iberia, Louisiana?
exactly. They came in through New Orleans to New Iberia, and then they eventually moved to Omaha. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So we should probably be able to find these births in Corleone for Michele and Giuseppe.
Only the oldest ones were born there before the family came. My Nanu, Thomas Cardella, was actually born in New Iberia. Yeah, you have that there. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
I know.
Well, they had quite a few children.
Alexa, what are my notifications?
Yeah,
So,
they were big families. And then my grandmother, who was a Randazzo,
Chris, you were asking Alexa for your notifications. I don't know if you wanted to be muted or. Sorry, Larry, what was you saying?
no, I was saying my grandmother on that side was a Randazzo, and they had even more children. But she was from the town, I don't know if you have it there, right by where the Palermo airport is. And I'm drawing.
This is
Cinisi,
Palermo.
Lucy, Carini,
Carini, or
non posso ricordare.
Let's see, what do we have?
Però Randazzo sembra un nome
Oh, you don't
carino.
have, I have that information. I'll send it to you. But
Okay.
I don't have it here. I'm in Arizona this week. I'll be back in Omaha. I mean, I'll be back in Indiana next week. I'll send you
There's
more
some
information
place
about
here.
that.
Palermo, Palermo.
The-
Quello è strano. Randazzo non è capito dell'area.
See what the other family trees have to say.
Yeah. My grandmother, Grace or Gracia, was actually born on the boat on the way to America.
Mhm.
Quella
nice
nave,
story.
Yeah.
storia veramente incredibile.
Oh, it doesn't want to load for me for some reason. Okay, here we go. Grace was born at sea, it says.
That's right.
Cecilia Randazzo.
What does that mean for citizenship? If you're born at sea? Does anyone know?
Well,
You should take actually the citizenship of the ship.
Oh.
That would make sense.
That would make
Because
sense.
you're in international water.
mhm.
So
Quindi
it's sort of like that with airplanes. I should check, but
Apolide.
well, I had once a pregnant woman, but in the end, I mean, eventually she delivered once on the ground. So
Really?
it was on Air France. I remember that. I mean, I'm an
Yeah.
air traffic controller, so, so
Oh.
there was she was delivering. I said, no, land, please.
I want to switch gears since Juicy brought up the fact that she's an air traffic controller. And for those of you who may not be following our Facebook group, Eleonora is unavailable tonight. So Juicy has bravely offered to step in and translate for us.
With
So thank
pleasure.
you. I know last time we spoke briefly, Juicy, about your book, which is in the process of being translated. Verite.
Yeah,
Verità.
that one is currently being translated in the States, and which is about Sicilian women, and I just chose 20 of them. I mean, they're not the most significant, but they're probably those who really wrote an important, memorable page in Sicilian history, becoming very popular beyond the Sicilian borders, and among them Santa Lucia, for example. And then the other book it was announced the other day, and it will be out on the 21st of March, and in Italy. So,
Congratulations.
thank you.
Wow.
My anxiety is
It's awesome.
Very
Congratulations.
powerful.
So tell
c'est vrai.
us about your journey. Give us kind of a brief overview of how you where you grew up, where you went to school, how you got
Me?
into air traffic controlling, and then how you got into writing.
I didn't
Okay.
expect it to be, a focus on me. But well, I was born in Lentini and raised in Carlentini, and it is actually in Santuzzi, which is that area those who were in Sicily in August probably see. This area that is between Lentini and Carlentini. So it is the real connection. Geographically speaking, it what makes Carlentini and Lentini just a sequence of buildings. And so that is where my family still lives, mom and dad and brothers and sisters. So they're all there. And I first moved to, soon after graduating, then in Catania, I started, I officially became a gypsy. And so I moved to Trentino first as a German teacher, because I graduated in languages like Eleonora, and then moved to Emilia-Romagna, so very close to Bologna, because I was admitted in it is Aeronautical Civil Academy. That is where I became an air traffic controller and started my career in Milan, where I worked for 15 years in Milan Control Tower, and then I moved to Rome because I was offered to move on the dark side of the of the company, that is the management, and that's what most controllers call it, so the dark side. And so I moved to Rome, headquarters of the company, and now I deal with innovation projects and implementation in airports. And along this, there's always been literature and theater.
So I have a question, Juicy, if you don't mind me
Yeah.
asking. So
Yeah.
what was the impetus, or what drove you to become an air traffic controller? Because it seems so divergent from,
You're right. That it's a good question. Well, I actually, since I was teenager, I knew I wanted both roads to be in my life, airplanes and literature. So most people ask, so you are a stewardess? No. But and then at that time, when I asked my father, because there is an aeronautical institute in Catania, and at that time, there is not that much time, but still that time, I asked my father, I said, no, this is not gonna happen, because and it's true, because it's mainly a male school. So it was a no. Said, okay, I will just postpone this. And well, it was good, because in eventually I chose a better educational path. So in university and whatever. But the first opportunity I had, I applied. And I'm very happy, because even at that, I started this job less than 20 years ago, but still you consider there were at that time 12,000 applications, and just 300 people were taken, and just 6 women. And I can proudly say that 2 of them were Sicilian, me and another girl. So, our percentage was very positive, and that's it. That's it.
So have things changed any since since you became an air traffic controller, have the numbers shifted? What are the current numbers, male, female, as far as
women.
handling?
Well, the trend is positive. They're increasing in number. We are increasing in positions. So, I mean, I would say because, you know, it was at first, it was a military organization. And since the 90s, and that is when women started to be admitted, it slightly changed and progressively changed. And people were more educated. People started to, and the company policies themselves started to, you know, pay attention to inclusion and gender equality and whatever. It's still something we need to talk about and focus on, but things are changing.
E così invece dove lavoro io a scuola,
Mhm.
che la percentuale delle donne è più del 90%. Tu pensi che nella mia scuola ci sono, sono alla scuola media 2 uomini e in ufficio c'è un solo collega maschio, noi siamo 5
But
donne con un
she's
solo
saying,
collega
she's saying that in her,
e qualche bidello, ma poi il 95% direi che è tutto al femminile.
is exactly the other way around, because she's saying that, I mean, in the school environment, which I think is globally and probably is the other way around, 95% are women of people involved. And well, but still, I mean, my job is, well, still, I mean, this kind of stigma is a male job. So we're working on it, but I mean, it can't be denied that it started as a male job because of military. And
So, one of the things that I discovered is that Juicy and I are cousins. In addition to, I know she's cousins with Sherry and
same line with Sherry and Sarah.
Sarah.
And what about me then?
And Donna.
Yeah.
And I'm meeting your granddaughter in 2 weeks. We're meeting in Rome.
Yeah, she told me about it. Yeah.
And you know what is Nick?
So Nebia's, Sheila, since we brought Donna's name into the conversation, Sheila, can you tell us about the coincidental meeting?
Well, we were innocently having a little meal after a long day. And I look up and I see this lady walking towards me and she's smiling and getting closer. And I'm thinking, I think she's looking at us. And she said, I think I know you. Do you participate on the Tuesday genealogy calls? And we said, why, yes, we do. And it was Donna. So it was very fun to meet her in person and get to understand the family line, and it was really fun.
And where did that happen?
Well, it happened at a little bar next to, I don't know how close Donna lives to it, but we live real close to it. And we were on our way home from the other side of town, and you know how you have those nights where you just don't feel like cooking.
We're going there again tonight, Sheila.
Okay, well, there we go.
Taco Tuesday.
It is Taco Tuesday. It's a little bar called Tanner's here next to us. So Donna, you must live out in this part of town if you go there.
I do. I live on 141st and Blondo, off of Blondo.
Oh, sure.
But
Sure. You're not far at all.
Right.
No, sì, guarda, si sono incontrati per caso e si sono riconosciuti perché non si conoscevano prima e si sono incontrati in un bar e si sono riconosciuti perché si vedevano qua su Zoom.
Ah, ecco, invece in questo momento a Carlentini c'è Denet. Denet
c'è?
È venuto Denet.
It just goes to show you have to behave no matter what you're doing now.
Which Tanner's is that?
The one on 156th Street between Fort and Maple.
I thought that closed.
Oh,
no, it's
okay.
Going
They used to
strong.
be open late at night, but they don't open late night anymore.
well, they were closed 1 week because they had a water problem. So maybe that
That's
was
true.
Oh.
at a time that somebody was there. Yeah. So Nick, am I related then to you too?
Well, our common ancestor between Jussi and I is not Ruma. It is,
Oh, okay.
I'm forgetting now. Let me just pull Jussi up in the.
Giussi, puoi chiedere a Nick se si ricorda di Denet?
Di
Denet si chiama questa signora, che è venuta a Carlentini in questo momento.
Nick, do you remember this woman she's mentioning? Danette?
Denet Haim? Do you remember Denet?
Oh, yeah, Jeanette Hyde, yes. Yes,
She's in Carlentini now.
Okay, so this is how Jussi and I are related. So her mom is Ruma. Her grandmother is Mariana Sorbello.
Mhm.
Her great grandmother is Lucia Bruno. So
Yeah,
we have
I'm
Brunos
related.
in common.
And I'm related to the, well, no, I'm not. I'm sorry.
You're in the rumor side.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Nick, I
tell
learned
us
some
again about
stuff
Lucia Bruno, Jussi, because she was a very interesting lady, as I recall.
Absolutely. She was the baker of Lentini baker, baker lady, because she used to bake. I mean, bread for everyone, part of that for free, and she was a very, very generous woman. And her mother died when she was 10 years old. She was so without anyone. She was raised by her grandmother and old aunts. And so, I mean, she was somehow a little, let's say, she has always been a sort of a little grandmother, actually. I mean, she had no childhood at all. She was forced to become older and to grow up very, very fast. And then despite this, she was illiterate, but despite this, she ran her activity as a baker for more than 40 years. And yeah, and what I want to add in reference to the Ruma, Nick, that I mean the relationship that is with Sherry and Donna and Sarah is not something we have discovered recently. What is impressive about us is that it has always been like that. So we have never interrupted the relation. So I definitely grew up with Omaha conversation, discussion, people. So it has always been a part of my life.
Nick, one of the things I learned
Wonderful
from-
that you guys never lost your connection. That is fabulous.
At all. And that was, I mean, a great and amazing job that our grandparents actually, and great grandparents did, despite being they just wrote from time to time. I remember my grandfather calling to Omaha at that time when one phone call cost a lot of money. For example, Sarita's parents, they could speak they speak Sicilian, but some they go, "Come si? Bono, okay, bono, ciao." That's it. But still, I mean, they were in touch.
Sweet.
Nick,
Okay, so yes.
one of the things I learned from Donna when we were talking in Tanner's, I learned, and I was not aware of this, and I'm sure many on the of the Omaha people were, but there was actually kind of a North Omaha section of town that had a lot of Italians in it. Donna, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, I was born on 17th and Clark Street in the house, and that's where my parents started out on 16th and I'm not sure what street that was, but then they moved over to 17th and Clark, and then that's where we lived in one house, and I had aunt and uncle lived next door, and then we had another little house behind there that some other relatives lived there too. And then my parents, we moved. And we moved to 28th and Sprague. And that's when my parents opened up their own grocery store called Corbino's Market. And we lived there for 11 years. And then we moved it to 42nd and Redmond. And at that time, there was a lot of Italians that lived in North Omaha, the Valentinos, the Nastasis, the Millers. Oh boy. And
My
well,
great
oh, and there
uncle
was-
had a shoe shop on the corner of 40th and Ames.
I'm sorry, Dean, I didn't hear you.
My great uncle had a shoe shop on the corner
Oh.
of 40th and Ames.
Okay, all right. Yeah, and see, and then we had some Dafu Society, what was pictured there, and we had the same thing like Santa Lucia, but it was called St. Alfio, Sandafu. And they had it stored in, there was Troya's grocery store on 17th and Clark. And then right next door to it was a separate building that they stored the statue in. And now I believe it's at St. Francis Cabrini's church.
So
My relatives, my uncles, there was, my uncle was Lorenzo Pachicaro. Now he was born in Italy in Bari. And then there was Alessandro, no, not, well, Alessandro's too, but Alexander's. He, Andrew Alexander, he was sort of really into the Sandafu thing and with my uncle, and I don't know, I can't remember all the names, but there was a lot of us from North Omaha. So
Saint Alfio is one of the patron saints of Lentini, is that right? Aren't there three?
yes,
it's the
yes.
main.
And
Alfio,
there's Holy Family Church.
Philadelphia.
I went to school there and made my first Holy Communion there until we
Wow.
moved.
Mi piace che lei dice Sant'Affio, in siciliano lo dice.
Yeah, but we're just laughing because of the way that Donna you pronounce it is the Sicilian way.
Yeah,
So, which is Sandafio rather
What's-
than Alfio would be
Yeah.
the Italian version. But you know,
Well,
the expert about that is Chase, Nick. You know him, of course. I mean, I think all of you know him.
I had invited him at one point to come speak to us, and we've kind of lost touch here recently. So if
Well,
you could remind
I
him,
know for sure you would love it because he's so fun. I mean, and he actually studied a lot, and he shared a lot with me while I was there in Omaha in December. And so his studies are mainly, and I mean, out of we don't know because he's not Italian, no Sicilian heritage, no nothing, but he just I mean found it interesting and collected a lot of material that otherwise would be lost.
who was that you were talking about, Juicy?
Chase Baker,
Oh,
what is his
Becker.
name?
Becker, Becker,
Yeah, exactly.
Chase
Becker, yeah.
okay.
He's a
Okay.
nice guy, and he attends also the sounds of
Yeah,
the
I
city
think he's-
sometimes.
What do they
And-
call it? The people that wear the gloves and do the statue and stuff.
Mm-mm.
He's one of those. So he is involved in
And in
Santa
Santa
Lucia as well.
Lucia, I guess a Santa Lucia committee. And Sherry is writing in the chat, devoti as well.
Devotee, sì.
Ragazzi, io vi devo salutare perché devo andare a letto, domani devo alzare prestissimo.
Silvana is saying
Ciao a tutti.
goodbye. Ciao Silvana.
Ciao,
Grazie.
buonanotte a tutti.
Alla
Ci vediamo il
prossima.
prossimo martedì. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Buonanotte, Savannah.
Ciao.
Donna, Sherry's asking if Uncle Jim came to the US.
He was born in Lentini. My Uncle Jim, that's my father. And he
Ah,
was, and he was born in Lentini, and he came here in 1921.
Okay.
It's-
Can you scroll up, Nick?
Now, my mother was
Here?
born here in the States.
One more,
Yes, my father is a citizen, Sherry.
right there.
Oh, that's
Hi.
right, Badios. Okay.
I lived like about 3 blocks from there. I know exactly where this was. To the left out of frame is where Tech High is, where a bunch of the people from Little Italy used to go to school up there.
Yep, that's where my dad went.
Yep, yep.
So see,
So,
Donna, you
did
taught me all
did you
about the
ever go
North.
to Don's Market, Donna, when you were living there?
Now say that again.
Did you ever go to this Don's Market that was owned by the Badianos?
No, I did not. The only market I
That-
went to was Corvino's Market.
Oh,
That
that's
place,
right, your family had a market.
so Dean, that place actually had a fire in it, did it not?
I think you're thinking of the restaurant on Maple.
No, this was the grocery store on Cumming Street.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So this
Their cousin
Holy
had a
Family started
restaurant.
out for the Irish.
Had a fire.
and Then it became predominantly Italian, which I think one of the things he neglected to really say was the Lentini connection, because a lot of the Lentini people lived here in North Omaha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's right. I'll tell you a story about my parents. I think I told you, Nick, that they met, I think, probably at a dance, at some dance that they all went to when they were teenagers or whatever. And so then my dad asked my mother to marry him, and she told her parents about it. And her parents said, no, you can't. He's a North Omaha Italian. and I laughed so hard because South Omaha Italians did not think well of the North Omaha Italians at that time. And but my mother, she married him. She loved him. She married him. And then at one point, my grandfather finally said, he's a good man because he knows how to work, and he got his own grocery store. So then my dad fit in.
Maybe because, I mean, in South Omaha, the Italian community, mainly, I mean, the Sicilian community was, so to say, they were closer somehow.
Closer?
Then,
There was the North Omaha ones though too.
no, I mean, I don't know. I mean, what was the main difference then?
I don't think there was any difference. It was just a few people that thought there was a difference between the North Omaha and the South Omaha.
It talked about how people were becoming more prosperous, and so they were moving out to West Omaha. And so then the neighborhood, I think, it may have been kind of a white flight situation, that there were more African Americans that were moving in.
And that's true. That's true. Very true. Because I did. My husband and I, we went out west because I didn't want my 2 boys to go to the same grade school I went to.
Mhm.
And so then we moved out west and got into the Millard school system.
So where did you go to school, Donna?
I went to North High,
No, what was the grade school?
Druid Hill. It was
Okay.
on 30th and Spalding. Yeah, I see a picture of that.
These are the different schools that they had in North Omaha, but it's a long article, so I'm not sure we have time to go through all of that. But anyway, so, all right,
Was
so we,
that a website? So was that a free website, North Omaha?
this
Mhm.
link
Yeah.
that I put in for the NorthOmahaHistory.com. Yeah, it's a blog that the gentleman writes. I had corresponded with some folks and I forget who all, I think Donna, you were on that. That he didn't really include Lentini in the story. He didn't get the connection between St. Alfio and Lentini,
Which is
which I
true.
thought maybe he could have expanded upon that part of it. But yeah, it's free access. And all right, so let's kind of move around the room a little bit more. I want to welcome Betty back. Betty, you said you were kind of curious as to what was happening. What's going on with you?
Well, we've been on a trip to Israel, Egypt, and Jordan for 3 weeks. So we're back
Wow.
about a week. And now we're looking forward to our next trip, which is to Sicily and the rest of Italy as well. But we'll be in Sicily first. And our son and daughter-in-law and young grandson are coming. And thanks to Eleonora, we've found a guide for translator for Polizzi, which is where my grandfather came from. So we're going to spend half of the time that we're there in Polizzi, and then we're going to go down to Santa Ninfa. So I have some information. I have records more from my grandmother in Santa Ninfa, which you found, Nick, that first time I was in this group. And on my grandfather's side, he had a cousin with the same name and about the same age, and I keep finding records for him. I found records for my grandfather in the United States, the ship he came in, where he came with his cousin at the same age. But I haven't found his birth record, so I'm really curious to see if I can find that when I'm there. So looking forward to that trip in April.
When will you be there in April?
Fabulous.
I will.
Betty,
Yeah.
when will you be in the Palermo area in April?
April 14th, we will be in the city of Palermo, and the next day we'll go to Polizzi for 4 or 5 days.
Okay. I'm just looking, is that Polizzi Generosa?
Yes.
Yeah, I see it on the map, yeah.
Yeah, and after that, we'll go down to Santa Ninfa, where my grandmother is from.
Mary Kay, you're also planning a trip. You want to give us a little brief outline of what you have in store?
Yes, we are going. It's my husband and I. We're taking 4 of our kids we're going to go to Rome for about 2.5 days. And then we're going to fly from Rome to Catania. So I'll be in Carlentini area that first week in June.
Wow. So I mean, it's quite close.
Yes.
So you will stop in Rome then?
Yes. Yeah, we got to show the kids the Vatican, and then.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's here. I can see it from home, from the balcony, and yeah, sure.
So it's going to be nice. So we'll have all the big sightseeing, a couple days of doing that, and then we're going to stay. It's on the ocean, like 10 minutes from Carlentini. So if the kids just want to stay at the house, I can go see all my cemeteries and whatever else I like. And Eleanor is going to take us around for 2 days as well.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I want to meet you then, whether it is in Rome or Carlentini, because it depends. I will keep flying back and forth, and in the next month. So whether it is here or in Sicily,
I will be in touch with you.
We can arrange it. I mean, or if your kids want to have a tour in Rome in my Fiat 500, and it's a how do you call it? I mean, a cabriolet. Is a coupe or what?
Convertible?
Convertible. It's a convertible Fiat 500. I mean, that's what most tourists have as a rental car. And then in that case, we can have a Dolce Vita tour in in Rome.
That would be terrific.
It sounds like this Omaha Carlentini group has already created a lot of new tourism in Sicily, and particularly around Carlentini. Is that right? I mean, is a lot of this new tourism?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, that's one of the
Yeah,
hopes we
well,
had.
especially now that the pandemic's over, but people are traveling now and
Yeah.
they're making connections, and it's a local interest. You know, all of these folks have mentioned going to their local town of interest, and Eleonora is studying this whole roots travel phenomenon and trying to tailor her skills toward that kind of tourism. So this is very exciting.
Has she mentioned any more about the Museum of the Emigranti that she was talking about early, a museum in Carlentini that would honor the people who went abroad and create some place where their stories could be captured, and people perhaps locally could connect to their family members who went abroad and such?
Well, that's a big project, actually, very interesting, but quite complicated. But I know that the idea and the project is on the table.
Yeah. Even a virtual version of that, an online version where people could trace their family trees and tell their stories and capture those things and put pictures and things like that would be very interesting and helpful.
There is an emigration museum in Santa Ninfa, which I'm very excited to go to. I don't know how much it has about families, but it's a lot about, my family came in 1899, and apparently there was a serious plague of some illness, and I'm not remembering the name right now, and also a fascist uprising, and a lot of people left at the time. So I think the museum has a lot of information about that. I'm not sure what they have about individual families, but I'm very excited to find out.
Yeah.
And anyone else is coming to Sicily or Italy between you, Susan?
Yes, I'm going in May, and I'm also going to land in Rome, Florence, Cinque Terre, Palermo, or Milan, then flying to Palermo and spending like 2 weeks in Sicily. So I have been in touch with Eleonora. So of course she's going to be showing me around for a couple of days. And I also have a guide for my other town.
And you will mainly be on the west coast of Sicily then?
No, I'm trying the west coast and kind of the east coast too, because I do have relatives in Carlentini and I've seen them a couple of times. So I want to see them and then see Eleonora. It's on the west side it's from Termini and Mersey, and I have never been there. And I did find someone who's from the town, and she's going to take me around for 2 days in that. So I'm very excited because this was planned 2 years ago, but with the pandemic, it kept putting it off. So finally, this is it, we're going. This is my third trip, and my husband has never been before. So I'm hoping maybe we could get together and see you. I do have a relative in Rome who's a lawyer, so I'm going to try and get together. But I'll PM you the dates that I'm going to be there, because I'd like to get together with Savannah also, and I think maybe we could go out for dinner or something one night. So I'll,
Well, I will be flying really like crazy back and forth because I will in the next month, from the end of March, I will probably be during the week in Rome and weekends in Sicily.
Okay.
Probably not every weekend, but the majority of them. And well, I'm also having to think about Omaha in summer. So I'm having a serious think, actually.
That sounds good.
Now, this link between Sicily and Omaha is becoming, I don't know, stronger and stronger, sort of a miracle.
Yeah, it's great.
Just looking at the website of that museum you were talking about, Betty. So that's pretty amazing that they beat us to the punch on that.
I'll let you know how it is when we get back.
There is a museum that I went to in Catania, which I thought was rather interesting, about the invasion of Sicily during World War II.
Sbarco.
Sparco, yeah.
And
And
that is a beautiful museum. True.
yeah, if
True.
you get
Yeah,
the
could
chance.
you put it in the chat so I could write it down, please? Or
Sure.
Okay, sure.
thanks.
Is called Museo dello Sbarco, and actually reproduces faithfully what was, because that was the place, actually our coast, I mean the sea and the beaches that are just outside, let's say Lentini and Carlentini are actually the place where the first Americans arrived in 1943. And so there is a museum that is dedicated to that. And the museum is fantastic because it really reproduces both digitally and really, and how the situation was. You probably were in that room, Nick, when then they just show you sort of a typical Sicilian square, typical Sicilian piazza, and that is beautiful with the balconies, flowers, and wherever. Then they just turn off the light and simulate. There is a bomb and attack simulation, and then they turn on the light again, and you see everything destroyed. So it was actually reproduces that kind of feeling. And well, I definitely recommend to visit that museum.
Put the name of it in. I'm having trouble with the website for some reason.
It is. I will try to
But
write it
it's,
here. I mean, I
there's
don't
a
have
TripAdvisor review here, which
Museo
you know,
Storico dello
of course, a lot of
Sbarco.
military images, but one of the things that I found particularly interesting was the Italian village exhibit, which I'm not seeing in this particular, but it talked about the experience of what it was like to be in Sicily when the Allies were bombing Sicily, and what it was like to be in a bomb shelter. And so you go into this little cave-like structure, and you feel the explosions and the movement, and it was an interesting recreation of what it was like to be in a bomb shelter. But this particular, I'm not quite sure why that's not enlarging, but the map shows how the invasion really happened in our part of Sicily, you know, in the southeast corner here. And these were the Americans in blue, and then the Brits were over here. So the Brits were the one that actually came into Syracuse, and the Americans were east of Agrigento.
Well, Americans arrived from different directions. So one is that for sure, that is around, I mean, let's say Agrigento, so southwest coast, and then there was the other side, I mean, our side.
The Canadians were a big part of the landing force in Sicily as well.
Yeah,
Also,
this is for
my
that is
relatives,
the image I was referring to.
yeah. My relatives in Carlentini have their summer place. They used to have it was a big farm on the coast by Baia del Gambero.
Sure.
And on their property are still the pillboxes that were built for defending or for repelling the invasion of the Allied troops.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, it's probably it is literally our coast side. So where the beaches and our rocks were.
Yeah.
Pretty interesting. And then they had like they had like a photographic exhibit, sort of a changing gallery type area. So you just never know what you're going to get once you get there. But and then the building that it's in, the Ciminieri.
See, Ciminiere.
What
Ciminiere
was
is
that?
actually is a cultural area, is a sort of a cultural building, and sort of exhibition area, and the museum is inside this exhibition area.
We went to that museum in the fall. It was excellent. If anybody's going, definitely
3
worth a visit.
floors, 3,000 square meters. It's a big museum. So you need to kind of see it on a gallop. If you want to see everything.
And it's in Catania?
Yeah.
In
Wow.
Catania.
I've never
This
been
is
there.
one that I would love too, is this underground Catania tour.
Mhm.
Has anybody done that one? It looked like it would be interesting. I was reading about that.
I've been in the catacombs in the Syracuse, which are
I was about to mention that. But
they're really
they're
interesting.
the biggest catacombs, and after, I mean, the biggest are in Rome, and those in Syracuse are the second in Italy. The second, I mean, the second big ones in Italy.
It's like a city underground.
Exactly.
Who's buried in the ones in Syracuse?
Oh, well, no one actually. No, I don't think so. But if you think that in the catacombs in Syracuse, it's the place where San Paolo celebrated the first Catholic mass in the Western world.
Oh.
And so soon after, so the first Catholic church is the Dome of Cathedral of Syracuse in Ortigia. That was previously a temple, and that is the first Catholic church. So it is actually where the Catholicism was, let's say, from Constantinople. I don't remember now the name in English.
Istanbul.
Exactly. Then everything started in Syracuse, in those catacombs.
Oh, okay.
But it's so big, so big. It's true. It's a sort of a city underground, and part of that is prohibited because people can get lost. And it isn't that pleasant, actually.
Add that to my list.
Sure, you have to.
Okay, so let's see, I'm going around the room here. Marianne Sofio, what's going on with the Omaha tours these days? What have you been doing?
Well, the Historical Society is going to get a new executive director, and I don't think that person has been named yet. So we're kind of on hold until this new person gets in place to see what type of tours we can do. And Eleonora is, very anxious to have some of the Italian visitors come to Omaha, and I would work with them then. But we would have a little bit of a language issue. So, I think there's more Omahans going to Sicily at this time than Sicilians coming to Omaha. So that's on tap, where we want to develop that. Mm-hmm.
One of the things that fascinates me is, that the history or the focus seems to be on Little Italy, the Santa Lucia Hall, the Sons of Italy, the St. Francis Cabrini Church, that whole area. But like we've seen, Holy Family was part of that, and you showed us that when you took us around. You showed us Holy Family, but then there's also the old market so much of that is Italian history as well. And,
Correct. Mhm.
you know, highlighting the Italian history of the old market. I think there's that one little column that has Monaco's name on it, but the Howard Hotel was a place where a lot of these immigrants would come, and there were, you know, working in the produce markets, and that I think could be highlighted more.
My great grandfather had a fruit market in the old market.
Did he?
Yeah, I was just going to say, there were so many fruit markets run by the Italians. It just wasn't the one. You know, that was a very common business in the old market for the Italians, and they knew, you know, how to handle all of that. So that is a big part of the history. I agree. Mhm.
Yep, my dad tells the story of his uncle who had a booth. You would rent booths, he said, down in the old market. And then like in the off season, he would just work on building like the boxes to put the fruit in. So I think that was a very common occupation for them.
Right, year round almost for them.
Yeah, I think my mom tells me that her grandfather was a peddler who would go down into the fruit markets and, you know, do whatever, you know, get what he's getting, and then go through the, you know, like Jobbers Canyon, what was a couple of blocks away on the other side of 10th Street. And he would sell, you know, what he had, what he was carrying along there, the fruits and whatever. But yeah, I see that a lot when, you know, going through and looking at occupations on censuses and in directories, you know, so yeah, that was one of those common things. I know on North Omaha, on North 30th, what is that one? There is, I don't remember the name, but it was an Italian thing that was up there. And I know my next door, when I was growing up there on North 33rd Street, there was the neighbors next to us were Alconas, and they were big into fruit and that kind of stuff too. And
Charlie Ancona?
probably, I can't remember their names, but you know, I've read a lot about their history after, you know, in the last few years. And I think they had a family feud when things got divvied up after the old man died. But it was, you know.
Don't the Anconas have like a food distribution business in Omaha today?
I think they do. I think they're up in Irvington.
Okay.
I can't, yeah, it was, I think there was, that's another one that kind of escapes me right now. But I know when I drive by the place, it was like up there north of who was the guy we had on here? La Manja?
Oh, yeah.
Manja.
Manja.
Manja Italiana?
In
Yeah,
Irvington.
it was there. The warehouse is up north of there on Irvington. And it, you know, and it was like, okay, well, this is like from the Alconas, but Alcona was not from Sicily. They were from someplace on the mainland somewhere. And so that's probably why they were up there in the rich section of town, you know,
Right.
you know, north of Tech High. You know, they were up there on, because that was a very affluent neighborhood when my folks moved up there. Was kind of after the fact, but I know when the Alconas and the other people built there, I mean, that was the place to go.
Talking about Florence area?
No, I'm talking about, it's called Montclair, and I saw that on the store name too, Don's Montclair. And that was the name of the area, and it was like from around 33rd and Hamilton to Cummings to 30th. And it was in that kind of area. So there was like Lafayette had a lot of big houses on Lafayette. And then you go up the hill to the west of there toward 38th Street. And there was a lot of big houses in that area too.
I think my cousin Bill was a home builder. and he
Yeah.
built in that area.
Yeah. There were a lot of very nice houses in that area.
45th and Briggs, I think he was at. That's
Yeah.
not familiar.
Yeah, that was a little bit farther out. But they had their own reservoir up there, on 40th and Hamilton, 38th and 40th and Hamilton. They had their own private water, in 1888, they put the reservoir up there, the waterworks did. And that just, the whole area just blossomed up there with that.
Sheila, were you ever able to find where Walt's Cafe was on North, was it 16th?
Right. I talked to the Durham Museum. Somebody sent me there. They could not find anything. They saw a time frame with Waltz. The only idea they had was maybe Register of Deeds, which I couldn't find anything on their website.
You should find it in the directories. What years was it there?
Well, Jim, it was called, what I was looking for was Mary's Cafe, but on the address that we have, several people found it a few years later as Waltz Cafe, and then Waltz something else, a couple things. I know that in the 1950 census, it was noted as a restaurant, and in the 1951 city directory under Margaret Sidoro, it had the address as a residence listed under email, and under her it said restaurant, but it never said the name. So I can't find anything that shows me the time frame or confirms the name was Mary's Cafe. Now, she had two children. One was Emo, the other was much younger, and her name was Mary Ann. So I'm guessing the restaurant may have been named after the daughter. I'm not sure on that. But no, I can't find anything to prove it.
Do you have an address or approximate location where that was?
I do. It'll take me just a second to find it. It was on North 16th. It's a parking lot right now. It was like, yeah, you're right. It's right there on the Creighton. It's just a few blocks north of the interstate. So,
okay.
Like 60.
So it's like, okay, so it's in the neighborhood with Pettit's.
Yes.
Bakery.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
I'll find the address here. I've got it. I was sending it to a few people, so I'll find it and I'll put it in the chat for you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask if anyone has found? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Larry.
Can I ask if anyone has found a good book on Sicilian language? I found this one, which is Beginning Sicilian, but I haven't found another, and I'm kind of working my way through this. Joseph Privitera was the one who's the author of it. But it's hard to find too much on the language, on the the written and spoken language. My father was always fluent because he was a pharmacist, and all the old CE would come to him and speak. He continued to speak, the Sicilian. So, and because everyone he grew up with was Sicilian, he thought he was speaking Italian until I took him to Italy.
That happens with many Central Americans.
No one could understand a word he said. He got really frustrated until we got down to Sicily. But then it was amazing because obviously people still speak in dialect among themselves, particularly in the small town. So it's good to know. My mother didn't grow up speaking so much, because my dad had the chance to practice all of his life because people always came into his drugstores. He owned Peel Drug, which was on 17th and Dodge. And if you guys, some of you remember that. But
I knew your dad from the Sons of Italy.
oh, did you? Oh, he used to love to go down there and cook. Yeah. I've got some great Sons of Italy aprons from him. Yeah. But anyway, so but you know, we called a lot of things by their Sicilian name, but we didn't really speak in the language. And so I'm trying to, I studied regular Italian, so you know, I can sometimes speak Italian and throw in some Sicilian words when I'm in Sicily, but I really want to learn to speak the language better if I can. So
That's
yeah.
very nice. And what I say, I always say that to Sarah, my cousin, and she laughed about that. That you're Sicilian is somehow, no offense, but it is somehow frozen. Because I
Yeah.
mean, it can't be any other way.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And in fact, even when we got to Carlentini, you know, everyone could understand him, but the kids would laugh when you say, they would say, you sound just like Nanu or Bis Nanu.
Exactly. So I mean,
Because
it
they use
sounds
old.
somehow
Yeah.
old.
Yeah.
And
And so, yeah.
Yeah.
because I mean,
They-
it was the Sicilian spoken, I mean, 1 century ago.
Exactly.
Anyway, language develops, but it's so nice, and I'm sure that every effort is always so very warmly welcomed and appreciated. I mean, we're not like when it happens to go to France and I try to speak some French, well, whether they understand or not, it's always a no. So,
Yeah, that's good.
So I wanted to draw Connie Martell into the conversation. Connie, if you could turn your microphone on and just say hello and give us a little update about what's going on with you.
Yes, I have quite an extensive tree going. I'm almost up to 5,000 and it's so interesting. But my question is, I find that I'm related to several people in different ways because of so many marriages of in-laws. And it's hard to keep the tree straight because I have the same person in the tree a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that also?
It's very common.
Yeah, and in fact, I am constantly adding and then realizing I already had them in the tree. So then there's a function called merge where you can actually merge those two individuals together so that you only have one, which I highly recommend that you do because it gets so confusing when you have multiples of the same name and dates.
Yes, I'll try that. I hope it doesn't mess my tree up when I merge them because, you know, my second cousin twice removed might be my great grandfather's sister's husband or something like that.
Yeah, well, and it is, and this relationship calculator that they've added to ancestry.com is it boggles my mind because it has these hugely distant relationships that they put in there, but it still has its value. If you want to get together sometime, Connie, I could give you a tutorial on how to do it if you're uncomfortable with it.
Well, I can see how I can see right below
At
that you
least,
can
yeah, I can at least
merge
demonstrate it.
duplicates.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if it would mess the tree up.
No, I don't think so.
No, okay.
Yeah, Jim is quite adept at it as well because as he's going through the records and adding new records, you know, the information from new records all the time, he's finding he has these people already in his tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing that I'm finding, well, I'm working through the 1830s, and I am finding where people have remarried. And that's always a challenge when you find the way that you can confirm people are really who you think they are is on marriage records, where you find out who their parents are. And then you go back and you kind of look at their birth records to get the dates of births. But then, I think here recently, I have been, like I said, I've been going through the 1830s, and I have marriages that I have tracked back from after 1900. And what is happening now is, okay, well, I have a death record from the 1900s. I go back and I attach the person, or I create a record for the person with a date that I have from a birth, but the birth is actually somebody somebody who died several years before the actual person was born. And that's what I'm coming across now. So I have one person that was born in, let's say, 1830, and then I'm working on 1837, 38, and I'm finding another person with the same name, and it's like, okay, well, what's happening here? And then, of course, I start, I have been putting more notes in there for myself, saying, okay, this is their age, and this was their approximate birth. But I know the parents because I got the parents from the death records, I got the parents from the marriage records, and I got the parents from the birth records. So I know that there are a couple, there are a lot of duplicate names, and they like renaming children, after deceased children. And then, when you're looking at the records, it's best to make notes in your records as you're putting them in, so that you have an idea of a timeline. And that's what I've been trying to do, to make sure I can, relate back to this. So when I'm going, like I said, I'm going through the 1830s, and I'm finding younger children, that have the same name as the one who actually married the person who died in the 1900s. So it's a challenge, and it's very interesting seeing these things. You find out all sorts of cultural stuff. Like if one last thing I'll mention here is if a parent, if the father dies before the child is born, they name the child after the father, which is really kind of amazing. But that has happened. I have seen that in many records where, and then you go back and you find the father's death record, within the last 9 months, at the birth. So, yes. So if you've been following my tree and you've been pulling stuff out of there, you might take a look back there to see if I haven't added in, new children that I didn't have before that are in there now.
How do you access your tree, Jim?
I'll send you a link.
All right.
So I had mentioned the atto di riconoscimento, and I wanted to take a minute and show you on my family tree where I found that. And of course, here I am, and my wife Robin, and my daughter Nicole, and my daughter Suzanne. And then going back, my dad and my grandfather, Richard, who was AKA Sebastiano, born in Lentini. That's a whole nother story. He should have been born in Carlentini because his dad was from Carlentini. But what I'm going to focus on right here is my great grandmother, Maria Osino. And we're going to view her family tree. And so I've been tracing out the Osinos, and I had a trouble with Salvatore here, her grandfather, and I couldn't find his birth record. So I thought, well, let's see what's in the marriage record. In the marriage record, I found that he was registered under the name Salvatore Giarratano, and he was listed as parenti ignoti, or unknown parents. And what I did find in what are called the Processetti, there's marriage records, but then there's also the Processetti and the Allegati. So the Processetti are like 1860s and prior, and the Allegati are 1860s to around 1890s somewhere, as we have access to those for Lentini and Carlentini. Basically what they are is support documents that, you know, it wasn't a simple process to get married in Sicily. You had to provide documentation, and they didn't want any bigamy going on, you know. So if you were a widow, you had to prove that your spouse had died, or you know, in terms of your parents have to give you permission to marry. But even if you were an adult, they would still ask for permission from the parents. And if the parents were deceased, then you would have to provide documentation of the death of the parent. So anyway, I knew that they were married in 1852 and that their record was number 61 for 1852. And so when you go to Antenati, this will take us right into those particular records, but it's called the Matrimoni Processetti. And again, when you open this little window, it gives you a little more information about what the record actually is. And so 1852, obviously, but okay, so this here is the actual cover page for the marriage. And notice that it's number 61. If you go back and look at Salvatore's marriage record, it is also number 61. So you have to find 61 in this grouping. It's number 647, or page 647 out of 796 pages. So it requires a little bit of guesstimating as to where you're going to find this, and then browsing in order to find these, because they're not indexed as such, where you know that numero di ordine 61 is actually on page 647. You just have to browse till you find it. But anyway, down at the bottom, they make a list of everything that is included in these support documents. And so number one is the atti di nascita degli sposi, or the births of the spouses. Atto di presentazione dello sposo fatta di 1946. So this, it didn't actually sort of jump out at me when I saw that, what that actually meant. But as you browse the images, you come to, well, and then this last one is you know, when they do the banns, there was no opposition to the marriage. So opposizione was the last of the three items. But so as you scroll through, you'll see this extract of the Nishita, which, and in this case, it's for the groom, I believe. And then the next one is the extract for the bride, I believe, or the second page of the groom's. And okay, so this is the bride. It's extract of birth. And then the next page, the next document, kind of slow to load, aren't they? Okay. And this is the one that blew my mind. Atto di riconoscimento di un figlio naturale. So this is an act or a document of recognition of a child or a natural child. And basically what it says in here is that Giovanni Orsino, right here, Giovanni Orsino, di anni 36 or 36, di professione veterale. So I could use some help with that word, Juicy. Do you recognize that word?
It is a really old word. Let me check, because that's old. That's really old.
I think I had a.
Because you know, especially profession names, and they just went obsolete because those jobs disappeared. So there are some jobs I don't even know how to call in Italian. Let me check.
I'm looking at the wrong person. You put it in. I guess I didn't. No, carrier.
Vetturale, carrier is sort of a
Vetturale.
carrettiere. Vetturale. Oh God, it's a very old-fashioned word.
Yeah, very old. So
very
carrier, so maybe like a cart driver.
Well,
because
sorry,
at that time they were the most of them. I mean, one of the most popular male job was carrettiere. So they just had a carretto and they were carrier.
yeah, it was right. It's basically it's a horse riding carrier or whatever. You know, it's driving a cart.
Yeah,
horse.
Okay.
Sì, Salvo, erano tutti da tanti documenti,
Sì.
tutti carrettieri.
Anche mio nonno era carrettiere, per cui sì. Dopo c'è stato in America e ha comprato il carretto. Yes, so it's basically, it's a driver, because the other word says, I think, vinicolo, something like that. So maybe just carry, you know, agriculture produce around.
Okay.
With two words there.
It says domiciled or domiciliato in the Strada Santa Maria la Cava. It does not give a number.
Sebastiana Licata di anni 38. Sebastiana Licata, 38 years.
And they are coniugi, it says.
Coniugi, they are married. So they're a married couple.
And she is residing with him, domiciliati ivi.
So the couple is,
Dichiarato di
Those-
riconoscere
Mhm.
per proprio figlio legittimo e naturale un giovane che è stato presentato 12 del mese maggio 1831.
So the married couple declared to know as to recognize as their legitimate son this young man who has been introduced on the 12th of May 1080, so 1831, 31, right?
Mhm.
Does it say why they weren't recognized at the time of the birth?
Well, it doesn't say why.
No, the birth, it's probably, they probably abandoned the child for
Oh, you
whatever
see?
reason. And then now it looks like they've come back to claim the child for whatever reason.
So where did the name?
So when you look at the timeline,
Sure,
when you look at
sure,
the
because I mean
timeline
the
for
following
events,
sentence. Sorry, maybe I run a bit faster, and the following sentence says and states that they declare that that guy was generated by them, procreato da loro. You see, è nato e procreato da loro. That means he was so created and delivered.
Nick,
procreation is a
Procreated, yeah.
Mhm.
Nick, I'm gonna put I copied something from an Italian genealogy website. A guy gave a great explanation of a scenario of why they why they weren't able to legitimize children at the original time and come back later and do it. I'm gonna put it in the chat because it's a great, succinct explanation from him.
Oh yeah, I'd love to read that.
This was kind of this is the same discussion that we had two Monday nights ago.
Yes.
Mhm.
That with Dean on the line here, and we were looking back at this record. We were looking at a record that was similar to this, and we found the birth record with the name that they gave the child and the explanation on that. And that's the one I think you sent off to Salvo.
Yeah.
Did you see that one from a couple of weeks ago?
No, sorry, I was not actually. I was away. But I think, Jim, you asked my dad. I think there was a similar case in Carlentini, where actually what happened was you have you can foster the child, and because the people were now able to afford the kids, the state would pay a little money to the foster family. Until then, obviously, you get of maturity age or whatever, and then you decide to recognize officially the kids. Now,
Okay.
obviously, I'm reading also what has been shared there as well, which is about the fact that in Italy, the marriage in churches was not recognized by the state. That is happened till 1929, when we had the Lateran Pacts between Mussolini and the Pope, where actually marriages in the church were also recognized for the states. So, but I guess probably there was the incentive there because the state used to pay some money, give money to foster family. Although I mean, everybody knew that they were the legitimate kids, so there was there was an incentive there, basically, not to recognize the kids, if you in a way.
Right, they would take the child off, in some of the records that I've seen, and the one that we were looking at a couple of weeks ago with on the Monday night call, it was the child was dropped off, you know, and then they rang the bell, the kid was picked up, you know, and essentially they put a description on there of all the clothes and everything else that was left with the kid. And then occasionally the mother will come back the next day when this is all being recorded, and she will volunteer to raise the kid. Have you seen that, Salvo?
No, I haven't. But I mean, is it, as again, it's very similar to what, so when again, to a case we saw before Christmas there, where actually there was exactly the mother volunteered to pick up the kids, but obviously she knew, or sorry, she knew, of course she knew. I mean, that's where her own kids, you know, so.
Yeah, well, that's what's happening. I think she, you know, they got to go out and scout somebody who had a baby recently because they need somebody to nurse the kid.
Yes.
And so the mother shows up for whatever reason, you know, she will volunteer to take care of the child. And then she writes a contract. Essentially, there's a legal contract within the birth record saying that she will raise and nurture the kid. And then when, you know, if the administration, for lack of a better word, will come by and check occasionally to make sure she's doing a good job. And, you know, that's what I got out of these documents, reading through there and doing my crude, you know, Sicilian translation.
Again, Jimmy, the thing here is, again, this lady here, she had an incentive obviously to foster the kids now, because she was getting a little money, FUBOB, from the government to raise the kid. So
Okay.
There was an incentive there. So financial incentive basically to not recognize the kids as your own legitimate kids, but then still bring them up, you know, as a foster mother.
Right.
Or foster parents, sorry, not just mother.
Yeah, there are a lot of different scenarios out there. And one that I see too, which that I've been worked through here in the 1830s was or maybe it was later, I can't remember. I see so many of these things. But you know, they had 4 or 5 children before they were ever married. And I don't know why they decided to get married, but they decided to get married after the 5th kid. And then the last 2 children that they had, they were legitimate kids, you know. But the first 5 that were out of marriage. You could see that they were natural born in the records, and then I found the marriage record amazing enough because it was like, okay, I found the last 2 children that were legitimate, and it's like, okay, well, they had to have gotten married here between this one and this kid, and so I found their marriage record.
Yeah, sorry, was this in the 30s, you said?
What's that?
Was that in the 30s?
I don't recall exactly. I would have to go back and look through what I've been working on here lately.
Because again, maybe I'm just speculating here again, the 30s, so there was a fascist period, so maybe there was an incentive to be married or to be rich as a marriage, so you might get to, again, some incentive
but
there.
Were,
you know,
the kids were being registered, and the couple was natural. You know? So they were not married.
Yeah, there's a distinction in the marriage record. Sometimes you will see that it says that the mother is the natural mother, or in other cases it will say that the mother is
legitimate.
Sua moglie legittima, which legitimate wife. But anyway, in this particular case, he was born in 31. They recognized him in 1846. And this is actually what was noted on the margin of his birth record, which I thought was kind of interesting. And I couldn't really make it out entirely. But is talking about 12 maggio 1800. Must be Trentuno 31. Signore da Maria Baudo.
Yeah, Baldo, yeah, could be.
Baudo, yes.
This
I
Fiorentinese
don't
surname.
recognize this word right here, though. And then it says di questo spedale
Questo ospedale.
is this
You might
hospital.
Hospital?
I
Della
missed the first word.
something.
Didn't get married
Pieta.
in the civil
Uh-huh.
because they didn't recognize the church ones. They'd get married in the church, but they didn't get married in the civil. So then later they'd have to come back, get married in the civil.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, so un maschio, I recognize that. K something Averlo.
This is the record that we were looking at 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was just hoping maybe the native speakers could recognize some of these.
Yeah, because this is actually a lot clearer than it was when we were looking at it a couple of weeks. It was kind of a fuzzy picture.
Yeah, this one's a lot clearer, but still the words are difficult.
That's for sure.
And it's mainly because of this handwriting.
Yeah,
And it's
so
200 it's 200 years old too.
Yeah. Every word
I think
is
this
so
is dated, yeah.
stretched.
It's interesting that it's written in Italian and not in Sicilian.
Sicilian is not the written language.
No, because what they would do is, okay, this is an annotation that was written in 1846. They went back, they legitimized the kid in 1846, and they went back to the original birth record to put the annotation here to say what was going on.
But the notation should be after the 1861, I presume, because I mean
this record was originally written in 1831.
Okay.
Right. You know.
And then they
DiMaggio.
And then they legitimized the kid in 1846. And so they came back to the original birth record here to put in an annotation referring back to the thing that happened in 1846.
So what is strange here? If this is 1831, Italy was not still a country. Why were they speaking in Italian? Maybe I would expect something different than, maybe Spanish even,
That's a question for your dad, because these 1830s, 1820s, it's all in Italian, which I don't understand.
Obviously, Italy was unified in 1861, and this was
this is 1846. This is 1846. The annotation.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying. So it's strange. I mean, it's in Italian. Could have been Spanish or, and again, I'll ask my dad, obviously, because I mean, I'm surprised.
Però nei documenti erano in italiano, Salvo.
Ma italiano non è una lingua dell'Italia. L'Italia nasce nel 1861, quindi non lo so. Comunque no, scusa, è una cosa che mi sta venendo adesso. Sorry, I'm thinking about, I mean, it seems strange that, I mean, it's all in Italian, or is it primarily in Italian? But I mean, I might completely be wrong. Sorry, guys. Here, just I'm thinking about. That's
it's clear, and then it says Provincia di Noto rather than Provincia di Siracusa, because
Siracusa
it was
became
il Capovallato.
No, became Noto was the.
Era il Capovallato.
Esatto. Noto was the main. The three valleys, of Sicily, Noto and whatever they call it, and then there was Siracusa was this district at the time, and then with unification, Syracuse became the main the province.
Exactly.
Maybe with the fascists even. So
No,
Well,
but
again, yeah.
it should be something around these years. I remember that because of poetry or something, but it should be right between 1846 47. So it's very close. I mean, it should be mid 19th century. But I might be wrong.
It is a question, though, in my mind as well. Why were records in Italian during the Bourbon era?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is, exactly. The Bourbons were in charge here. So the king, it was in Naples.
Mhm.
So that's why I'm saying, seems surprised to me. You know what I mean? So again, I might be completely wrong on this, but I was expecting a different type of Italian. Let's put it this way. This is seems modern Italian to me, you know, in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does. I agree with you completely.
Given the fact he's 200 years old.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Convenient
Okay.
for us because fewer of us
Oh,
would
it is,
be able to
absolutely.
capisce
It works out well.
siciliano.
I'm just wondering whether this actually is a translation or a copy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, these are the originals that were
I don't know.
microfilmed.
I know. But it's wow. That's I definitely will ask my dad tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank
We'll
you.
look forward to hearing from you.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, that was a story of riconosciuto.
Riconoscimento.
Riconoscimento. So I thought that
You
was
see how Spanish does this word sound? True.
so. Let's see. Oh shoot, we had our guitarist leave us. It looks like.
Juicy, do you have a book that has the origins of the Sicilian words? Because so many of the words came from Spanish or Arabic or what have you. And I think it's really interesting to see the etymology.
Sicilian vocabulary is very fascinating because I mean it actually Sicilian absorbed during the time all the influences of our historical dominations. So French, Spanish, Arab, and whatever. I mean, well, let's say 80% of Sicilian words have somehow, it's Sicilian, right? So we're talking about dialect, have Spanish origin. It's very close to Spanish. Then there are some French, of course. I mean, we are able to recognize them. And some Arabians, like probably a word that your grandparents might say is a mischino. When someone was now in a sort of a poor condition, or even home, when you say, oh, poor man, poor guy, mischino, that is Arabian, it's still in use. So
Gigilena, how about Gigilena?
Exactly. So
about
everything. So roughly, we can say that what is mainly related to gastronomy, astronomy, and deals, I mean, is Arabian, has an Arabian origin. Like another expression that I'm sure your grandparents used is tale, when they just try to draw your attention and say, look at that. So tale, tale, tale. And that is an Arabian word. Still, it is current Arabian. So fascinating.
Yeah, I've worked quite a lot in Egypt and North Africa, and we talk about words that are similar. And Gigilena is one of them. And
exactly.
For
that is one of them.
Snails, they say babaluja.
Sorry, guys, I stand correct. I'm just checking here. The constitution of the Kingdom of the Two Sicily, which was again in 1819, states that the official language in the kingdom is Italian and Latin. So since 1819, so 1819. So apparently, the Italian was introduced as a language even before it was introduced in the north as official language. So that's it. Sorry, I was wrong. But so that's why we have the documentation is in Italian.
No, grazie Salvo, perché questo very very interesting. I didn't know the date.
Before that was Napolitan was the official language. By 1919, Italian became the official language of the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies.
And that is coincident with the date of when these records started being kept as well. It was the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies that instituted that record keeping, which they give credit to Napoleon and some things I've read that he brought the civil registration process to.
Yes, the civil registration started in 1804 across Europe, so in France, and that is when basically when they start also building cemetery outside cities. They introduced the registration of documentation. So it started with Napoleon in 1804. Absolutely, yeah, that's correct. Across Europe, not just in France or Italy, but was every land which was conquered by the Napoleons introduced what's called the civil code, and that's also make the introduction of of the Civil Registration Act for birth, death, or whatever, which prior were just kept in with churches.
Yeah.
Now actually the state will collect those data.
So to go back before the early 1800s, you have to go to the churches?
Primarily, yes.
Yeah.
I would say so, yes.
I mean, even some of those early protestati, though, you can find the fede di battismo.
Yeah.
Or
baptisms documentation.
Baptism records from the church.
Yeah.
And you'll find those written in the record books of the civil authorities. But when you got married in the 1820s or the 1830s, you still had to provide birth records from the churches.
Yes.
Okay, well,
Okay,
we've covered
Larry,
a lot of territory tonight.
Larry, I put a link out there for a website that I discovered a while back with the Sicilian language.
Oh, good. I see. Okay.
Yeah, this
know.
Cornelio guy, he's got a great website.
I see it.
I'll check it as well.
Yeah.
He does a lot of genealogy stuff too.
It says corneliofamily.com. Is that the name of the website?
Right.
Yep.
The Cornelio family
Must be the name of the family as well. Cornelio.
Well, that's what the top of this page it
The
says.
rabbit family.
Yeah, corneliofamily.com. Cornelio family, one word. Coniglio.
Coniglio, yes.
Well,
Exactly.
Larry is a Sicilian pro then.
Yes. Oh my
Already
goodness.
pro level.
He's fluent in Sicilian.
Okay. Well, good. Well, thank you. That's very interesting.
All right, well, I'm going to draw this discussion to a close, and I want to thank you all for your participation tonight. I'm sorry I didn't get to call on everyone. I want to thank those of you who listened patiently and didn't get to speak. If you want to say something next week, please let me know, and I will call on you. So it's an open agenda. Anybody can raise any item that they want, as long as it's related to our topics. Genealogy, history, and culture, Sicily and Italy. Thank you all.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all, guys.
Thank you for
Thanks.
setting these up, Nick. These are interesting. I
Goodbye.
can't join every week, but I really enjoy them. And Juicy, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I mean, I love
Yes,
your
thanks for
interest.
sharing your history, Juicy. That was amazing.
Anyway,
Bye-bye.
See you soon. Bye.
next
See you soon.
week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.